Hello and welcome to the very first video in a new series I'm calling It's Business Crime. My name is Mike the Map Maker, and I'm going to be making a bunch of maps for your fantasy RPGs all around the idea of committing crimes. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the bad guy. You could be a Robin Hood style thing, but I think it's a very fun dynamic that doesn't get explored enough in our games, at our tables. So this very first video, I'm going to start off making a map of a general store that you might find at the beginning of an adventure in a small sleepy village that's maybe about to be attacked by a bunch of goblins. And yeah, I'm just going to run through what I'm doing, my ideas behind it, and in the next video, well, once it's finished, we'll actually look at how you can use the map normally and how can you add a little bit of a crime element to it. How would you approach it if you were going to maybe heist this store for whatever reason? So what I'm doing right now is I'm using a software called Incarnate. It is a really good map making tool I've used in the past, although I've not used it quite recently when I was originally making this. So I'm actually experimenting with some new tools they've added for making rooms and such. And that's just what I'm working on. I'm creating the layout of this general store. And my thinking is, well, actually, the shopkeep probably lives on site. So on the right, these kind of stony areas that I'm adding, that's kind of the living space for our shopkeep and any family members they might have. I'm experimenting with the line tool. If you're wondering what those red squiggly lines are, instead of doors, I'm kind of going for a more rustic sort of pull-back drape to divide the rooms. So I'm adding a little kitchen area, and the main big block to the left, well, that's going to be the storefront. So you have the little living area on the right, storefront, and that's where your customers will come in. They'll be walking around, they'll drop their cash money to the shopkeep and buy all the goods. On the left as well, you got to have a little storeroom for any extra stock or anything that might be broken, that might need repair, you know, the day-to-day business. And I'm thinking with this, well, I'm changing up the textures a little bit. So the textures you see with the stones, well, some of it's a bit rough, because I'm imagining this was originally just a little village hut that someone lived in, and then they built a wooden shop front around it. So I'm adding a little bit of history to this actual structure. And of course, we've got to think about the doors and the windows, because not only do they kind of dictate lighting and kind of give you a bit of more of a grounding to where you'll put your items, but if you're thinking about crime for your players, well, you've got to think about entry points, places they might need to actually get into the building. You can see there I'm actually listening to the Dungeon Keeper 2 soundtrack, switching over to Age of Empires 2. I don't know what it is about 90s sequels that the music is so good, but honestly it's perfect for actually sitting down and banging out a map, because I've given myself a little challenge for this very first video. I just wanted to be fresh and quick, so I'm trying to do this in about an hour and a half. So I think I'm kind of on par at this point. We'll see how I do at the end. And going back to what I was talking about, entry points like the windows and doors, those are the obvious ones, but I like to add in a few extra ones that might be a bit spicy. So we've got a cheeky chimney I added on the right. You could sneak down that, maybe if you were a gnome or a dwarf or something. There's also a little toilet area. I think that's always charming to have kind of the real-life elements of a living space in our maps. But also you think if you're kind of a craven druid, well, maybe that could be an entry point as well. The druid could turn into a rat, sneak in through the toilet, maybe unlock a window or something like that. So I always try to add... Whoa, that's a big spaghetti mess. What the... Oh, okay, yeah, I'm making a muddy trail here. So one of the things I love to do is to add these little kind of muddy details to maps. You'll see it a lot when I'm trying to add this kind of feeling that this is a lived-in space people are using all the time. So yeah, this storefront, we're adding bits and bobs to it, and the mud kind of represents where these muddy peasants, these farmers come in, they buy their day-to-day goods, and probably the shopkeep doesn't have enough time to give it a good mop-up every single day. And as you can see, I'm jumping around all over the place. I'm adding these stamps. Incarnate comes with all these great resources that you can just throw in. I sometimes alter the colours to make them look a little bit more consistent. And my general design style, well, I love to jump around. I like to build the whole thing all at once. I don't like to fixate on just one thing at a time. So yeah, for example, I've just jumped outside, thrown a bit of wood and a wheelbarrow out there. If you're going to have a fireplace where you cook, you're going to need some wood for it as well. And we've got some more mud. That's probably where the shopkeep and the family, they come in when they're just doing their day-to-day, not doing anything business style. And with a general store, I'm trying to give us a nice spread of things I'd expect to find there. So I'm kind of imagining what villagers might use, but also what adventurers might use as well. So we've got things like candles, bottles, pots, but also camping supplies and tools and maybe some seeds and grains and things like that. On the left, I'm adding the storeroom, and at the top, well, we've got a little secure area. Now, this one's a big one. This is where the shopkeeper presumably keep their gold at the end of the night once they've done all their business, and that might be a focal point to where a heist would go if you wanted to rob this shopkeeper. So that door is probably going to be locked, and getting to the chest might be its own challenge. We'll discuss that in the next episode, so I won't do too much talking about that stuff just yet. But I'm trying to think about these things as I design it, because shops, yeah, they're interesting spots for you to kind of sit with your players and build out the world a little bit as they gear up. But also, I think it can also be its own, dungeon challenge as well. Now, with any business, you're going to need paperwork, so I've thrown loads of scrolls and ink pots around, adding a bit of a carpet here as well. But as I'm adding the carpet, I feel like the shopkeep wouldn't have the super nice carpet back there. They'd probably have something old that's been there for a while, a bit tattered from walking around. So again, a little bit of storytelling, just with the decisions you make with the stamps. Now I'm feeling like the main body of the building is pretty complete, so I'm going to jump outside and start working on the outside details. I'm going to tweak the mud a little bit, and we're going to start to add trees and shrubbery. And this is something I love to do, is when you're making muddy paths, using lots of different textures with different opacities. It gives it a lovely natural feeling. And of course, a shopkeep, well, they're going to want out-of-towners to stop on by, so we'll add a little area for anyone on horseback to tie up their horse, have a little drink. It's worth mentioning as well, my design philosophy is nothing based on anything historical or real. Anything that is historical or accurate is pure coincidence, because I go off a pure gameplay vibe sort of thing. So my D&D fantasy world, it usually looks a lot more like something you'd see in Red Dead Redemption. A cowboy thing where you have like a saloon and you have all these general stores that might have stuff like this in it. So yeah, I don't think this is accurate for a medieval thing, but I think that's okay. As long as the map is fun. We're adding some little details as well as rocks and the vines, and so I'm feeling pretty good. I even added a couple of animals to the general store, a couple of rats in there, so that's kind of cute. And a few more details here and there, as I say. Oh, you can't forget the store sign to bring people in. So I've added that there, and I'm feeling pretty good. And now the very last thing I'm going to do is actually make a nighttime variant of the map. We're going to add a filter to give it a good look, and then I'm going to do possibly my favourite aspect of map making. I'm going to add some fancy lighting. I think it really brings some life to this map here. So yeah, if you're going to want to rob this shop with your players, you're going to need a nighttime variant of the shop for when they inevitably come back after dark, when everything's closed up. So there you have it. Check out our final completed map. Well, there you have it. Now, with the final map, I actually have made a few quick last-minute edits, just to kind of round it up. So that took me an extra 15-20 minutes. So overall, this map took me just over 2 hours to do. So I didn't quite hit the time limit challenge I gave myself, but that's okay, because I'm actually really happy with how this map turned out. I think it's really going to be a really good place for you to do all sorts of shopping, crime, shenanigans. So let's run through my edits really quickly. First off, I've added a small bit of pavement with a sewer grate on the side here, hinting to the players that, yeah, you could go through the sewers and maybe come out of the toilet. As I was doing it, I thought that was quite a fun, gross idea, and I wanted to, visually foreshadow something like that on the map. Next up, I went through the building and I just added some joints to the actual framework to make it look a little bit nicer. I thought it was a bit janky when I was using the line tool. Wait a second. Can you guys see that? What's that in the kitchen? Is that a like and subscribe? Wow, who left that there? Well, if you've gotten this far in the video, maybe you should consider liking and subscribing as well. It's only gonna get better from here, folks. But back to my edits, another thing I did was I actually enhanced the lighting to make it pop more. I also messed with the layers of the nighttime filter because a few of the items actually weren't being affected by it. A sloppy mistake by me, but we're all about sloppy mistakes. So you get better. And finally, this might make you sad, but I got rid of the rat buddies in the storage room. I didn't want to cement them permanently in the map because it seems silly that rats would just hang out there all of the time, every single time you go in the room. So, yeah, they're gone in the actual map, but don't worry, we'll be bringing them back real soon. And if you want to download this map, well, you absolutely can, completely for free. Just click the link down below under the video, and you can use it for whatever you want in your games. It doesn't have to be crime-related, after all. It is just a nice little shop you can throw in whenever you want. And, yeah, that wraps up episode 1. But tune in for next time, because the next episode of It's Business Crime, we are talking some game theory. I'll be answering all sorts of questions, like how do you run a low-level heist as a dungeon master? What sort of risk and reward should there be for the player for taking this sort of dangerous approach? And, of course, how does a regular Joe in a fantasy world actually stop a team of would-be adventurer thieves from robbing them blind? We'll cover it all next episode. So until then, I am Mike the Mapmaker. Keep on trucking, folks.